Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here. Hope you're happy, healthy and well. It is time for a new book review today. As you saw, sometimes it is difficult for me to create these videos, especially when my husband is at home. Do you know I was going to do a book review? Could you go away, please? Could you please go away? Do you know I'm going to put this into my book review? Oh my God, just let it go. This is the book review I'm going to do. Alright, go. Go. Oh my God. Jesus. But no matter, let's crack on, because I want to talk about this book called They, A Sequence of Unease by Kay Dick. This book was published in 1977, and at the time it even won an award. The author herself had published about 8 or so books, some fiction, some non-fiction, but this was a book that got a prize simply because her writing was very different to her other books. And I think also it was because of the concept here that she expressed in the book that also captured the interest of the people who gave her the award, I guess. It's an interesting story in that it was published in 1977, but because the sales weren't high enough, there weren't many sales, the book itself got out of print and then it was promptly forgotten until 2020, when someone found it in a secondhand bookstore and they decided to republish it with Faber Editions. And so I found this book in my local library. I was wandering down the science fiction aisles, which is an aisle I don't usually go down, but I was wanting to read something a little bit different, something short, something to be more like a palate cleanser before I go back into my classics and my literature books, which are quite heavy at times. And I find that when I read heavy books one after another, it messes with my head sometimes, so I need a break, and this was my break. What is They about? They is set in a very dystopian society, a society that doesn't value or acknowledge or appreciate artists. In fact, it doesn't want artists. It doesn't want anyone who is single also, because to them, single people represent freedom of thought, represent liberty, represent freedom of being able to go anywhere and do anything that they like. But at the same token, also artists. Artists are people who are individuals, who are free thinkers, who are spirited, who create things with their hands, with their minds. They create works that enable us to question, to learn from each other, to question the world, to question society. And this society does not want that. So it basically rounds up the artists, maims them, kills them, tortures them, destroys their artworks, destroys their workshops and studios, and puts them into these mass kind of centers where their memory gets erased, where they don't need or even remember what they used to do or anything about their artwork. The whole idea is actually quite frightening when you think about it, because it is a society that is pushing towards, the one idea. They want people to be more in teams. They want people to think as a, not to think, to be as a group, to not question, to be absolved of this idea of having to create. They do not want creators. They do not want people to think or actually create anything with their hands. They want people to conform to their ideal. And this society also gives out television sets to each of the homes, and these television sets in this picture is, you can imagine it, in each of the house there's a television set, and people are lost without their TV set because it's where they sit down, it's where they forget things. There's no need for them to actually think of anything, do anything. They're dumb and happy in front of their television set and somehow get lost without it. These presented some really interesting ideas for me as I was reading this about what K. Dick was telling us about society and about artists and about where we're going as well. But you might be saying, well, who's they? Well, you can imagine they in this society are people who are quite nebulous. They just kind of hang around. You can see these little shadow figures. If you were an artist in this society and you looked out your window, you'd probably see them people who just mill around. They're just kind of checking the house out. They're checking you out. They're looking at what you do. They might be hanging around your window. They might be peering in your window, and they're making sure that you're not creating anything or you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing. But at the same time, these artists stand firm. They stand firm in the sense that they pretend they aren't out there. These people aren't out there. They go on their life as per normal. They try and not make a fuss, but they will just basically walk through them as like normal. They don't make a fuss. They don't want any attention drawn on them, simply because they know that once they get caught by them, they're more likely to be killed. It is a cruel, very, very cruel society where they capture the artworks and the art and basically maim the artists with their own art. Children are cruel in this society. People simply do not want any free thinkers, creative people who express themselves. One of the things I thought this book was saying to me was the fact that it was written in 1977, and I think maybe at that time K. Dick was also seeing what was happening in the world and how society is changing and how we have our technology, our televisions, who are just bombarding people with different media, different messages. And these technologies and different media and messages also detract us from what is more important in the world, and that is to be allowed to express ourselves, to allow to be creative, to communicate with people quite freely, to converse, to create. In this society, it is not allowed. We are simply followers, and that's what they want the people to be. In this society, it's all about teamwork. You know, it's not about the individual. It's concrete, it's structure, it's very serious. They simply do not want, to them, artists are dangerous to their society. Part of me seems to think that, when I was reading this book, I thought to myself, are we going down this track? Are we going down this track where our tools, our technologies, and our phones are what are in our hands and on top of our mind at all times? Have we lost the freedom to create? What about the use of AI now, which is effectively doing our creative expression? We can use AI to create essays, to write books, to draw art for us. Where does that leave us now with regards to our own creative expression? It was an interesting book in the way that it was written, and I must admit I found it a little bit difficult at times. I mentioned there was 9 chapters. If you can imagine, in a usual chapter there are words in sentences, and these sentences make some kind of meaning and you get the gist of the story and the characters. But what I found, that the way it was written, it was as if there were missing sentences. So you kind of got this stopgap approach and little bits and pieces where in your head you had to put the entire picture. The connectors of those missing sentences were different quotes that kind of caught you unawares, and these different quotes actually presented what the society was about. For example, a quote could be, and it was out of the dialogue, out of the blue, it would say, "They're burning today." And so you'd read that and you'd think, what are they burning? Who are they burning? What is happening? but then the dialogue, the conversation would jump to something else completely. As I was reading this, you had to backtrack and read it again and try and glean some meaning out of it, because it didn't seem to flow. Now, some of you may have read Virginia Woolf, who writes in some style where she could jump from one person's head to another person's head, and it has that feeling. That's the kind of feeling I got from this book. However, it wasn't as, I guess, sophisticated as Virginia Woolf's writing. This one was a lot more stop-start. You had to kind of make some assumptions about the society, but those little quotes that these people said made you think about the kind of awful society they were living in. I'm going to leave a quote here which is very interesting. When I read it, that really resonated with me, and it's something that is still relevant here today. And the quote is, "Artists do not have to be blinded or burned to be silenced. Their suppression can be as simple as creating or maintaining economic precariousness and allowing books to fade away." And this was a very big quote for me as I thought about the writers in Hollywood who have been on strike because of AI. They're not hurt in any way, but simply the technology is actually creating economic situation for them where they are unable to make a living from their own art. And maybe this is a book for our time now, with regards to the fact of what important role artists play, and how sometimes we are the result, or our own actions are the result that actually make artists' life difficult. Righto, that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.